With baseball season practically underway, there's always a question that I get that is always hard to answer because you never really know what's going to happen during the course of a baseball season. I mean, it's 162 games. Winning streaks happen, losing streaks happen to every team, no matter how good or bad they may be. And the question that is always asked is, which team do you think is going to come out of nowhere and just surprise a lot of people, like make an unexpected run that nobody saw coming? And I've seen my fair share of it over the years. I mean, in 2023, just a couple years back, the 84-win Arizona Diamondbacks somehow made the World Series, and in 2006, the Cardinals won 83 games and won a World Series as well. And not during my lifetime, but in 1987, the 85-win Twins, who got outscored and had one of the worst road records of all time for a World Series team, ended up getting hot at the right time and going on to win a World Series. But there's one team in particular that always confuses the hell out of me as to how they even did what they did, because at least when you look at all the other teams I mentioned, there was talent there and there was expectations. I mean, the Diamondbacks weren't necessarily expected to be a playoff team, but with the young upcoming team they had, a winning season wasn't necessarily out of the question. And even the Twins in 87,
was that the bite of 87?
Made some moves that would make you think, okay, they're going to be pretty good. And the Cardinals were coming off back-to-back 100-win seasons heading into 06, so their expectations were already high. They just kind of had a lot of things go wrong for them that year. But the team I'm here to talk about actually comes a year after the St. Louis Cardinals made their miraculous World Series run. And that team that we're going to be talking about is the 2007 Colorado Rockies, the team that gets the nickname the Rocktober Rockies for, well, a reason that we're going to get to. But let's talk about the Colorado Rockies franchise as a whole heading into this point. They started in 1993, and through their first 14 years of existence, they didn't win a single division title. They had just one playoff season under their belt in the strike-shortened 1995 season, and they hadn't won a playoff series up until that point. And coming off a 76-win season in 2006, expectations were low once again for the Rockies, as they were a team that was known more for their offense than their pitching. Because of the altitude in Denver being so high, it's very hard to pitch there. So a lot of people just thought, okay, the offense will be pretty solid again, but the pitching is definitely going to hold them back from being a good team. Not to say they didn't have any good players. I mean, they still had Todd Helton, who at this point was 33 and kind of lost his power, but he still hit .320 and had 91 RBIs, while Troy Tulowitzki, a rookie at the time, came in and just mashed the ball. Plus, they had MVP candidate Matt Holliday, who hit .340 with 36 home runs, 137 RBIs, and finished second in MVP voting only to the Phillies' Jimmy Rollins, although it is argued, and I agree, that Matt Holliday probably should have won it that year. Heck, even a name like Brad Hwap really surprises me, because he hit .291 with 29 home runs and 116 RBIs, and it just surprised me because I would have never expected Brad Hwap to have a season like that. Overall, this offense was very well balanced. It's not like they actually hit for a ton of power. I mean, they did have 4 guys in the 20 homer club, but this was a different Rockies team. They hit for a high batting average, and they had some guys that were just going to hit for contact. It's not like they were great offensively, but they did a lot of things well, and they just ended up making it work. So what about the big question mark heading into the season? How did the pitching do? Well, for the Rockies standards, it was actually alright, which for the most part, when you look at the Rockies and the times that they have made the playoffs in their history, their pitching's never been fantastic outside of maybe 1 or 2 guys like Ubaldo Jimenez in 2010 and Kyle Freeland in 2018. But usually when they're pitching, especially the starters, do just enough, that's when we kind of see the Rockies really start to show what they can be and how good they can be down the stretch. Jeff Francis had a pretty solid season. In 34 starts, he won 17 games, had an ERA of 4.5, and even Aaron Cook in 25 starts had an ERA of 4.12 and pitched pretty well. After that, though, the rotation kind of gets a little bit weird because you have guys like Jason Hirsch and Rodrigo Lopez who were brought in the season. And Rodrigo Lopez was interesting because he had been the Orioles ace 3 times from 2003 to 2006. So a lot of people expect him to slot in there high in the Rockies rotation, but he dealt with injuries and pitched all right, but nothing spectacular. But one guy that really started to stand out was a 23-year-old pitcher by the name of Ubaldo Jimenez, who would make 15 starts that year and have an ERA of 4.5 and would really start to show off his stuff. And even the bullpen was better than expected. It surprised me when I looked at it. I mean, Brian Fuentes had a 3.08 ERA and 20 saves, Manny Corpus a 2.08 ERA with 19 saves, and then guys like Jeremy Adfeld, LaTroy Hawkins, Jorge Julio. This season for the Rockies was very up and down, but they got to a point where they were 76 and 72, and they were still in the midst of the playoff race, but it was very, very slim that they would even make it at this point. But now we're going to talk about one of the best runs I think I've ever seen at the end of a season ever for MLB standards.
Todd drives one high and deep right field. Get up and get out. Hilton has done it. The Rockies win it. Todd Hilton, the walk-off 2-run shot. Colorado has swept the Dodgers.
They would go on to win their next 11 games before falling to the Arizona Diamondbacks on September 29th, which this ended up being a big game because the Diamondbacks would go on to win the division, technically by 1 game, against the Colorado Rockies and the San Diego Padres. But finishing off the regular season with 2 straight wins to get to 89 and 73, the Colorado Rockies had yet to clinch a playoff spot. But they also had yet to be eliminated. That is because even though the Diamondbacks had clinched the division up to this point, the National League wildcard was still up for grabs, and their division rival, arch nemesis, the San Diego Padres, who had made the playoffs each of the last 2 years, also had an 89 and 73 record, meaning that we had to play a 163rd game, the first of 3 straight years in the MLB that a game 163 would have to be played. This one gets remembered for being one of the best win-and-in playoff games of all time. And in this battle, sure, the Rockies might have had the offensive edge as the Padres lineup was just so, weird in this game. The Padres still had the pitching edge as Josh Fogg was going on the mound for the Colorado Rockies, and he was facing off against Jake Peavy, a guy that was, really good. We didn't get a pitcher's duel. As a matter of fact, both pitchers really struggled to do anything. Josh Fogg pitched 4 innings and gave up 5 earned runs, including a grand slam homer to Adrian Gonzalez to give the Padres the lead.
Gonzalez to deep right field. That goes Hop. At the wall, it's gone. Grand slam for Adrian Gonzalez. His 30th home run of the year, and erases a 3-run deficit with a grand slam.
And even though Jake Peavy pitched into the 7th inning, he still went 6 1/3, allowed 6 runs on 10 hits, as the game just went back and forth for the longest time. And by the end of the 8th inning, the game was tied at 6, but in the 9th inning, nobody could score, meaning that we were going to extra innings, but all of a sudden a high-scoring game turned into an unexpected pitching duel. Bench players started coming into play, and it was just a battle of the bullpens up until the 13th inning. And in the top of the 13th inning, by the way, this game was played at Coors Field because the Rockies did have the regular season head-to-head advantage against the Padres, so that means that the Rockies in the top of the 13th were going to pitch, and Jorge Julio, a veteran, was on the mound for the 13th inning, but he would get shelled.
Hairston swinging away, sends it out towards deep left field. Back goes Matt Holliday. That ball is up and that ball is gone. A 2-run home run for Scott Hairston has propelled the San Diego Padres to an 8-6 lead here in the 13th inning.
So now, entering the bottom of the 13th, down 8-6, Colorado Rockies had to face the wrath of one of the best closers of all time, that being Trevor Hoffman. And to say what happened to Trevor Hoffman would be a shocker is an understatement, because the Rockies didn't waste any time. They came out swinging.
Matsui out towards right center field. That's going to get down into the gap to the track and the wall. Jason Lane grabs it, but not before Kaz Matsui stands at second base with a double to begin the bottom of the 13th. Tulowitzki towards the gap in left center field. That's going to get down. Matsui scores easily. Tulowitzki to second, and he is just in safely. To right field. Giles headed back. Giles at the track. He jumps and is unable to make the catch. Around from second base comes Tulowitzki. He will tie the score at 8 as to third goes Holiday with a triple that has tied the game at 8 in the 13th.
And 2 doubles and a sac fly later, the Colorado Rockies won the wild card game 9-8 in walk-off fashion.
To right field. Giles is there to make the catch. Tagging is Holiday. The throw to the plate. He is safe. The Colorado Rockies are the National League wild card winners.
Now, I know, Matt Holliday may or may not have touched home plate. That's, it's 19 years ago. We just need to get over it already. But for just the second time in the team's short history, the Colorado Rockies were heading to the playoffs, finishing the regular season with a 14-1 record in the last 2 weeks to even get there. A team that was written off and given no chance has all of a sudden got to the playoffs and won 90 games for the first of just 3 times in their history. But they weren't done once they got to the postseason, because you see, in the division series, they were taking on the NL East champion Philadelphia Phillies, who also ended a playoff drought of their own, as the last time the Phillies had made the playoffs up to this point was actually in the Rockies' first season in 1993, when the Phillies themselves made a magical run to the World Series. However, the Rockies weren't going to let that happen, and they swept the Phillies and set up an NLCS matchup between 2 unlikely teams, that being the NL West champion Arizona Diamondbacks and the Colorado Rockies, who came within just a half game of taking the division from the Diamondbacks. And this was an interesting series because even though the Diamondbacks were favored, there really wasn't a clear favorite, because the National League this year was very weak, to a point where the 90-win Diamondbacks had the number 1 seed in the playoffs. Like, that's not usually going to happen nowadays. The league would have to be very, very competitive, but we were here. And the Rockies just kept on going, and it ended in a 4-game sweep.
Check swing roller. Tulowitzki. Colorado's the National League champion.
The Rockies won all 7 of their postseason games to get to their first World Series in franchise history. And there was speculation that they could pull off an upset, because while they were heading into the World Series having won 21 of their last 22 games, but they hit a roadblock, and that roadblock was the Boston Red Sox. And the Red Sox had won a World Series a couple years prior to this point in 2004, ending their drought. So they were looking to kind of start a dynasty, 2 World Series in 4 years. I feel like that could be considered some sort of dynasty. And well, they shoved against the Rockies. If Game 1 really showed you how outmatched Colorado was against the Red Sox, then yeah, you knew how the series was going to go. They lost 13-1. And although the Rockies would give it a fight in Game 2, only losing 2-1, they headed back home to Colorado down 2-0, and in Game 3 they lost 10-5. So now they're down 3-0, and their magical run would then come to an end the very next day, as although they put up a fight once again, the Red Sox won the game 4-3 for their second World Series in 4 years.
Game over, series over, and the Red Sox are world champs again.
And just like that, Rocktober came to an abrupt halt. But 2007 is basically the high point for this Rockies franchise, because it was just one 3-week stretch where they were absolutely completely unstoppable, and they came out of nowhere to win the National League pennant, go to the World Series, and for a second there, gave their fans some sort of hope. And considering they've only made the playoffs 5 times, and they only won 2 series, that being the NLDS and NLCS this year, yeah, the Rockies franchise is not necessarily known as being a beast of a franchise, because, well, obviously, again, this is their high point, but it was magical nonetheless. Would really like to hear in the comments below, though, from Rockies fans and just other fans of baseball, what was watching this season like, especially the Colorado Rockies toward the end of the year? Was there any, hope that maybe they were going to pull off an upset in the World Series, or did you know that, hey, they made a miracle run, but the Red Sox are going to kind of slow them down a little bit and bring them back to reality? And what were your expectations for the Rockies moving forward after that? Did you actually think that they were going to be, a team to be reckoned with, or were you not surprised when they kind of went back to just being the Rockies after this? But until then, that's it for me. I cannot wait for baseball season to officially start, and don't lose hope in your team, because they could end up like the 2007 Colorado Rockies and come out of nowhere and make a run.